Welcome back to Northern Tales, where every woman's pain is a story, and every story is a quiet revolution. In part two, we saw sparks fly and walls rise. Binta stormed out, coughing and defiant. Zainab stood still, heart shaken, unsure if she would ever return. But now, in part three, a collapsing girl, a hospital hallway, and a diagnosis that changes everything. This is the moment where care becomes commitment, where survival demands more than medicine. This is Dr. Zainab and Binta, Part 3. The diagnosis, the drip, and the doorway. We post new episodes every Thursday and Sunday, so subscribe, like, and stay with us. Because these stories, they matter. Let's begin. 6 months. Zainab had been at the clinic for 6 months. Some days, she felt like she'd aged 6 years. The files on her desk grew thicker each week. The queue outside the clinic started earlier, stretched longer, and grew louder. The NGO that supported the facility did its best. They sent supplies, medications, even solar fridges for vaccines. The foundation's director visited often, beaming whenever Zainab asked for anything. "Whatever Dr. Zainab needs, we'll find a way," he would say. But it wasn't enough. There were too many people, too many illnesses, too many wounds that medicine couldn't fix. And sometimes there was just hunger, like the little boy they brought in last week, barely breathing, sunken eyes, arms like matchsticks. His mother clutched him, her own face gaunt with fatigue. Zainab checked everything. No fever, no infection, just hunger. She stepped outside, heart pounding. She walked to the woman by the fence who sold Puff Puff and Coke. She paused. "Coke, doctor?" she whispered to herself. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. "Zainab, don't give the children Coke. Take the fresh juice in the fridge." She bought it anyway. Back in the consulting room, she tore the Puff Puff into small pieces and gave the boy. He chewed slowly, eyes still closed. When she touched the Coke bottle to his lips, he sipped like it was water from heaven. His fingers twitched, then curled, then moved. Zainab blinked back tears, but that night she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. What am I doing here? Am I really helping, or am I just softening wounds I can't heal? She thought about asking her father, just once, to speak to his friends, businessmen, senators, tycoons, with foundations named after themselves. But she knew what that would mean, an endless string of conditions, appearances, interference. She stayed silent. In 6 months she had seen hundreds of faces. Some returned, some disappeared. But Binta never came back. She told herself it was for the best. Binta didn't want help, didn't want advice, didn't want Zainab. Still sometimes, when the clinic was quiet and the wind rustled the zinc roof, she heard that voice in her head. "Businesswoman." And she smiled, a bitter smile. It was a rainy Tuesday when she returned. Zainab had just finished examining a newborn when a nurse rushed in. "Doctor, a beg come quickly. One patient. She's fainting outside." Zainab grabbed her stethoscope and rushed out. A young woman leaned heavily on her friend, barely able to stand. She was thin, her skin dull, her eyes sunken. Her scarf was slipping from her head, soaked with sweat and rain. Zainab squinted. There was something familiar in the curve of her cheek, in her silence. Then she heard it. "Ah, Oyimbo doctor, you're still here?" A weak smile, barely there. Zainab's heart stopped. Binta. It was her, frail, almost unrecognizable. But the voice that had haunted her for months, was the same. She had come back. The clinic wasn't designed for this. No beds or wards for admission, just examination couches, stethoscopes, and a steady line of patients. But when Zainab looked at Binta, her frame barely holding together, her lips dry, her pulse rapid, she knew sending her home would be cruel. Worse, it would be fatal. She set up a drip, hung the fourth fluid herself, watched it flow into Binta's arm as she dozed in and out of shallow sleep. Zainab wiped her face with a damp cloth, offered glucose, whispered things she wasn't sure Binta heard. When she finally stepped into her office, she sat for a moment, then reached for her phone. Dr. Suleiman, the foundation director, picked on the second ring. Good afternoon, Dr. Zainab. How's our golden girl doing today? She didn't smile. Sir, I have a patient. She's bad. I think she has TB, maybe HIV. She needs to be admitted properly. We can't manage this here. There was silence. Then, you want us to pay for admission? I'll pay for the ambulance myself if I have to. Please, she's young. This could be her chance. Another pause. Then, I know a partner foundation that has an ambulance nearby. Let me arrange it. I'll cover the bills. But Zainab, be sure. She was already standing. Thank you, sir. Binta was still woozy when the ambulance arrived. She protested, muttered something about no need, tried to push the oxygen mask away. Zainab held her hand. Just trust me, businesswoman. Let's find out what's going on. In the ambulance, Zainab sat quietly, watching the IV drip swing slightly with each bump. She looked at Binta's fingers, pale, chipped nails, bruises on the knuckles. Why this girl? She had seen dozens, even hundreds, of patients, but none stuck like her. Maybe it was her defiance, her wit. Maybe it was the way she said, "I sell pleasure," like it was her name. Or maybe it was how beneath all of that, Zainab saw herself, a girl trying to survive systems they never built. At General Hospital, Zainab Binta was admitted. Zainab stayed to sign her forms, make sure she was registered, walked the long corridor while nurses collected sputum and drew blood. Against her better judgment, she stayed even after visiting hours. She sat beside her until her eyes closed again. Then she left. 2 weeks passed. Zainab called the hospital daily. She visited when she could. And then the call came. We have the results. She met with the doctor, a calm man in blue scrubs, barely 35. He didn't mince words. Your patient is positive for HIV, and her sputum is positive for pulmonary tuberculosis. She'll need to be on ART and also a 6-month TB treatment plan. Zainab felt the air leave her lungs. She wasn't surprised, but she wasn't ready either. The doctor looked at her gently. Do you know if she has any family? She shook her head. She only has me. The hospital ward was quiet that afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the slats in the blinds, casting golden shadows on the wall. Binta was sitting up when Zainab walked in. Her hair had been washed. Her skin, still pale, held a hint of color. There was light, just a flicker, in her eyes. Zainab smiled. You look stronger. Binta nodded. I feel lighter. Zainab pulled the chair closer. She hesitated for a second, then gently said, Your tests came back. No panic, no protest, no denial. Just a faint smile from Binta and a small sigh. TB and HIV, Zainab added softly. Binta turned her face toward the window, and then, the strangest thing, she smiled, a full, real smile, not mocking, not sarcastic. It puzzled Zainab. You're smiling? Binta shrugged. At least now I know. At least someone told me. At least now. I'm not dying in the dark. Zainab didn't know what to say, but she saw it now. What was behind Binta's smile? It wasn't happiness. It was relief. She had been drowning, and someone finally threw her a rope. Then, unexpectedly, Binta looked at her, eyes clear and almost childlike. Doctor, why? Zainab frowned. Why what? Why do you care? Why didn't you just let me go? You could have ignored me like the others. You could have looked the other way. Zainab took a breath. She reached forward, her hand light on the bed rail. Because you matter. Binta's eyes widened. A tear slid down the side of her face. She looked away quickly. No one has ever said that to me. Then, after a pause, maybe someone did, but I can't remember. Zainab didn't press. There was so much more behind that voice. But for now, silence was kinder than questions. Before she left that evening, Zainab made sure the ART treatment was started. She spoke to the pharmacy staff, confirmed the TB medication, and reviewed the treatment schedule with the nurse on call. Then she walked down the hall to the same young doctor who had broken the news. She's on treatment now? Yes, he nodded. We'll monitor her for a few more days. Make sure she tolerates the meds. Zainab leaned in. Please, call me before you discharge her. I want to come pick her myself. As promised, Dr. Zainab drove to the hospital herself this time in a discreet white Corolla, just like she said she would. Binta was waiting at the entrance, a scarf thrown loosely over her hair, her hospital-issued file clutched under her arm. Zainab helped her into the car, and they drove mostly in silence. So, where am I taking you? Jabi, just behind the mechanic village, Binta replied with a slight smirk. Don't worry, doctor. I'm not taking you to a shrine. Zainab didn't smile. Something in Binta's tone put her on edge. The drive took less than 20 minutes. They pulled into a dusty compound surrounded by peeling fences and broken drainage. The house, a 3-bedroom flat with iron-barred windows, stood like a tired witness to too many secrets. Binta led the way in, and Zainab froze at the doorway. The stench hit first, thick with sweat, smoke, damp clothes, and something else she couldn't quite place. The living room was packed. 15, maybe 20 girls sprawled across mats, sofas, bare floor, some asleep, some half-dressed. One was braiding another's hair while chewing roasted groundnuts. A few were coughing, a deep, dry, phlegmy kind of cough. It wasn't a home. It was survival in its barest, loudest, most tragic form. Binta turned and smiled, arms stretched wide like a tour guide. Welcome to my mansion, doctor. Zainab didn't move. She wasn't sure if she was going to cry or scream or just walk out. You live here? Live. I thrive here. She winked, but Zainab couldn't stay. She stepped back outside. Please, come with me, just for a minute. They sat in the car. The doors closed. The world suddenly quieter. Zainab turned to her. Binta, I know I'm not the right person to tell you how to live your life. I don't pretend to understand your story. But this isn't okay. Binta looked at her, almost amused. You mean my palace? Zainab ignored the sarcasm. You're on TB meds now. HIV treatment too. These girls, you're living in a house where infections will spread like fire. Even if they're not sick now, they could get it from you. Or from someone else. Or infect you with something worse. There was a beat of silence. Then Binta laughed. A short, almost joyful sound. Well, at least if I go down, I won't go down alone. She smiled. The old Binta had returned. Sharp, cynical, coated in apathy like armor. Doctor, she continued, not everyone gets the luxury of knowing what will kill them. At least now I know. TB, HIV, hunger, or maybe the heartbreak of being forgotten. She shrugged. Pick one. Zainab felt a lump rise in her throat. She swallowed it, and then, just for a second, Binta softened. Her shoulders slumped, her voice quiet. But thank you, I mean it. You're the first person who's ever followed me all the way home. Zainab took her hand. Promise me something. Binta raised an eyebrow. Come to the clinic every week. I want to see you, even if you just sit and drink water. Just come. Binta looked away. And don't stop taking your meds, Zainab added. Okay, a whisper. I promise. Zainab nodded, then sat back in her seat, eyes closed for a moment, whispering silently, Ya Allah, hold her together. Thank you for watching part 3, The Diagnosis, the Drip, and the Doorway. If it moved you, please like, comment, and share. You never know who might be standing at their own doorway, waiting for someone to care. Join us next time for part 4, where healing is tested, home is redefined, and 2 women learn that sometimes belonging comes from the most unexpected places. Until then, this is Northern Tales, where every woman's story matters.